Good morning. I'm sorry we are starting this a little bit late. We just had a lively discussion with Secretary Price, and so we're a bit delayed here. But this discussion this morning is no less important, maybe more important, just as important as the healthcare discussion that we just came from. This morning, we are very lucky to have two amazing leaders with us, Judy Marks from Siemens. Thank you for joining us, Judy, and Zoe Baird from the Markle Foundation. This morning, we're going to be talking a little bit about workforce training and job training, and specifically apprenticeships. This is an issue near and dear to the hearts of every governor who's here and every governor in the 50 states. Mainly because, as we were just talking about, we governors have an incentive to get this right. The employers in our states are counting on us to figure out how to deliver them a trained workforce. And that absolutely includes four-year college, it includes community college, it includes career and technical education, but it includes and needs to increasingly include apprenticeship programs. Which I know many of you have started and are expanding here in Rhode Island. We are big believers in the apprenticeship model. Very early on in my term, we received a grant from the federal government around apprenticeships. We have dozens of apprenticeship programs. They're working, employers love them, and we are especially focused on what I call the non-trade apprenticeships. Things you may not think of as apprenticeships. We have one in cyber, one in IT, one in process technology, non-trade, but incredibly important, high-growth areas. And we are looking to learn from both of you this morning to figure out how we can expand and improve and deepen the work that we're doing. So it gives me great pleasure to first introduce Judy Marks from Siemens. Thank you for joining us this morning. Judy is the president and CEO of Siemens Government Technologies. Before becoming CEO of Siemens USA, she held various senior level positions at Lockheed Martin and IBM Federal Systems Company. I've had the opportunity to chat briefly this morning with her. In addition to being a seasoned, successful, experienced senior executive who's delivered complex systems, she's a real believer and leader in the apprenticeship model. Right now, they have thousands of open positions in the United States, 2,000 open positions. She needs to get them filled. And she is a believer in apprenticeships, is operating apprenticeships in 4 of their plants around this country and is expanding, and we're just delighted to have you here with us. So, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor Raimondo, and thanks to the NGA for inviting me. Besides my responsibilities leading Siemens here in the United States, I also have the privilege of chairing our 501c3 Siemens Foundation, which is focused on workforce, which is focused on apprenticeships and everything around facilitating that. We believe this is more than just about higher paying jobs. It is. This is more about growing our economy. It is. But this is about creating talent we need today to be able to industrialize our nation in what we believe is truly an industrial renaissance. And that renaissance, while it's happening across the country, it happens at the state level. We believe this is not just a state issue, but we believe that governors, more than anyone else, sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a good place to leave them hanging.
Okay. We believe that governors have not only the most motivation, but the most tools and ability to make this a reality for us. So let me share a little bit of what we've done as Siemens and as the Siemens Foundation so that we can hope that states can learn from each other and that we as industry can do more than just share the demand signal and what skills are needed. We can share what's worked successfully overseas as well. We're working with the NGA and the Center for Best Practices because we find that that is the best way to proliferate best practices. We've chosen 6 states that we're already working with to be able to deal with skills and training. We're also working with 12 states on apprentice registrations and how we can make that happen quicker and more efficiently. But most importantly, recently we had a real unique opportunity with NGA and with the JP Morgan Chase Foundation to share what works over in Europe. And we had the privilege of sponsoring and joining Governor Daugaard, Governor Fallin, Governor Bevin, as you got an opportunity with your staffs to see really what works in Germany and Switzerland firsthand. And more importantly, how can we tailor that when that comes back to the States? And I don't want to forget Governor Hickenlooper, because what you're doing with youth apprentices in Colorado is just amazing, and we want to take those lessons as well. But today we're facing some interesting challenges in the new industrial economy, and I see that, as do my colleagues. Here at Siemens, we've been in the US for 160 years, and we've had to reinvent ourselves many times along those 160 years. We've got 50,000 US employees and 60 manufacturing plants of our own. But we think the time has come where we're seeing the convergence of software, and we're seeing the convergence of the digital economy. And that's what's driving manufacturing today. The advanced manufacturing we're seeing is not the manufacturing you think of in the past. It is about automation, but it's also about having those human skills coming out of the high schools in our country and being able to apply those skills in a digital economy. Now, you'll hear a lot about, well, Jude, but aren't robots taking over? And I want to be really clear here and factual. In Germany, we use 3 times as much robotic technology as we do here in the United States. And yet there are twice as many manufacturing technicians in Germany as there are here in the United States. There's a role for robots and technology, and there's a role for humans. But the humans we need more than a high school education. They need a different skill and education program. And we've moved away from that vocational training that was the bedrock of how we built the last industrial revolution. We are at a new industrial revolution today. It's all about advanced manufacturing, and we need workers who can do that. So what we did to fill our own openings is we turned internally to our roots, and we applied the German apprenticeship model. In 2010, we brought that over here, and we started that in our facility in Charlotte, North Carolina, because we moved a facility from Canada here, and we needed workers who could have the ability to build large gas turbines, steam turbines, et cetera. So we started an apprenticeship program, and we started it with the local community college. We set the curriculum with us, and these students, after 4 years, they work for us part-time. We pay their tuition, so they have a debt-free education. They get an associate's degree, and they also get a journeyman certificate and a guaranteed job with us. And I'll share something with you at the end of this little introduction that I think you'll find highly energizing when we talk to one of our apprentices. But beyond that, we think we also have a responsibility to employ even a larger workforce. We've brought on 2,500 veterans and committed to another 1,000 veterans. But it's not just about the people. We have to create the curriculum. We have to create the environment. We have to tell you what the demand signal is and what skills we need. And then we have to give these students and the community colleges and universities the tools to be successful. So in the past 5 years, we've granted $3 billion of industrial software to community colleges and universities throughout the nation, so that these students, whether they're getting an AA degree, or associate's degree, or a 4-year degree, come out with the tools, the technology, and the analytics they need to be able to perform. I can't stop this discussion without talking about one of the obstacles we face, and it's somewhat of a societal obstacle. It's a stigma that's associated right now with technical education. And it starts early in the high schools, it starts in our communities, it starts with our parents. Our typical apprentice when they graduate, and we have apprenticeships in 4 states, we're doubling that to 8 states this year, earns between $55,000 and $60,000 starting the day they finish their apprenticeship. They proudly wear their apprenticeship logo on their work clothes. It's something in Germany where in our dual citizen, when you're 14 years old and selected to be an apprentice, that is looked upon as positively as selected to go to a university. And here in the United States, we don't look at it that way. So as our Siemens Foundation, we recently sponsored a a survey, and we talked to the parents and students who are involved in vocational education and career technical education. And they're very pleased with where it's going, and they want to be part of what we call middle skills and industrial reskilling. So we believe industry's ready. We believe the states are the absolute best place to get it done. We commend governors for making this real. As industry, we want to work with you to do that. And I'd like to share with you a piece that was just on the NBC Nightly News from our Charlotte, North Carolina facility. You will find the energy of Chad Robinson, one of our apprentices, who ironically had the opportunity. He was accepted to a 4-year mechanical engineering school at university, and he turned it down to become an apprentice at Siemens because he did not want the college debt. And he will finish our apprenticeship program shortly. If he chooses, he can go on, if he chooses, and get a bachelor's degree through our tuition reimbursement. But you will find his energy and his passion for what he does and what he learns remarkable. So let me share that video with you.
This is the sound of manufacturing in 2017 at Siemens Energy Hub in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I don't see or hear those big machines that I think of manufacturing.
Yeah, today's manufacturing is pretty different. It's custom, it's quiet, and it's all based on computers.
Siemens CEO Judith says that enables her company to be more efficient and competitive. But finding workers to build gas turbines was one of her biggest challenges.
We actually moved the product line from Canada here. And when we moved here, we needed about 800 employees. We were coming up a little short.
She says only 15% of those who applied had the skills needed. To bridge the skills gap, Siemens started an apprentice program to develop the mechanical and technical abilities called middle skills. A gap so big an estimated 2 million jobs may go unfilled in the next decade.
I've always had an interest in engineering, mechanical engineering.
Instead of going to a 4-year college, Chad Robinson chose to be an apprentice.
They pay for my tuition, they pay for my books, and then on top of it all, I'm getting paid to sit in class.
Robinson works in the factory and attends community college. After 4 years, he will have an associate's degree, a journeyman certificate, a salary of at least $50,000, and skills crucial to the larger economy.
If we don't provide a labor force that can fill that work, technology, foreign companies, outsourcing are going to replace the opportunity to earn your living in those occupations.
Taking a page from successful apprentice programs in Europe, Siemens now has similar training at 3 more U.S. factories.
It is an investment, and you have to start there. It's a strategic investment in people and talent and our future.
Benefiting the company and the economy. Ann Thompson, NBC News, Charlotte.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Very impressive, and thank you for your commitment to this work. I now would like to introduce Zoe Baird. Zoe is the CEO of the Markle Foundation. She has held that role since 1998, and under her leadership, the foundation has really focused considerably on this exact issue. And I know she's partnered with Governor Hickenlooper and other governors here in public-private partnerships to invest in successful job training and apprenticeship programs. Prior to that, Zoe had an incredibly successful career as a lawyer and in government. She's a friend and a leader. I'm an admirer. And I think she's just the perfect person with the perfect background to partner with us governors to take a leadership role in apprenticeships. So. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be with you at your hosted NGA meeting, which I understand is a tremendous success and a tremendous success for all of you. So I hope that we will contribute some ideas that you take away that are really actionable in your own states. And thank you very much to the NGA for having us here. You know, I think it's really important for all of us, and I've spent a lot of my life in public service as well as in the private sector. And I think it's really important for all of us who sit in a role where we're trying to address the pain that people are feeling in this country and trying to create the opportunity for them that we know exists to look at this question of the digital economy from their vantage point. So how do people feel People are excited. Most people have smartphones. Most people use Netflix or Amazon streaming and binge watch movies. So there's a lot of excitement about what the digital economy is bringing. But personally, most people feel that they don't see their place in it from an economic point of view. Most people don't understand what jobs to tell their kids to go after, what training to tell their kids to go after, what they themselves should be doing. We did a poll with Pew that showed that 87% of Americans, this is 1 month before the election when the country was so divided, 87% of Americans said that they need to get training throughout the course of their lifetime in order to succeed in a career. But they look at the institutions that serve them and they see our schools ending at 18 or 22. They see our financial aid and they think it's for young people. They go to an unemployment office or a workforce center and people aren't trained in understanding what the digital economy jobs look like. So they're talking about how to bring back jobs or how to get into a job that's highly competitive, but we're not able to fill 6 million jobs in this country. And each of us in our states could talk about the 100,000 construction jobs we can't fill today. If we get, a great infrastructure bill, we're not going to have the welders who know how to use precision welding. We're not going to have the people who know how to use a robot to break down the old construction in order to create the new. So there's a great disjunction between what we've been telling people, which is go to college, get a 4-year degree, and you'll succeed, and what they actually need to succeed in the digital economy. We have not done people a service telling them if you haven't achieved a 4-year college degree, you're a failure. And that's how almost 70% of Americans see the world, because almost 70% of Americans do not have a 4-year college degree. So we need a much more diverse sense of possibilities for people. That's what we're talking about here with apprenticeships, which is a really critical and important aspect of that. But there's so many other ways that we can also create opportunity for people. 100 years ago, when we moved from an agricultural economy to the industrial age, we invented the high school. You probably haven't thought about where'd the high school come from, why was it invented? It was invented at the state level to enable people to get the skills they needed, the training they needed, the understanding of the world to move from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. And what we believe is going to be necessary to scale all these great efforts of apprenticeships or employer educator matching is going to be inventing a digital economy labor market. And I want to show you a film which is full of Coloradans. Thanks to Governor Hickenlooper, we've started this work in Colorado and it's really taken off. We now have almost 300 employers signed up, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Skillful, but then about what you can do in your own states. But first I want to show you a very short film which will give you a sense of what a digital economy labor market's all about. So if you could run the video, that'd be great. America's really going through the largest change in its economy since the time of the Industrial Revolution. And so many Americans don't feel that they understand what their place is in this new economy.
There are 7.3 million fewer jobs in America today held by people with a high school diploma or less than there were in 1989. And in some ways, the single most important question for all of us in this country is, how do we move forward without leaving some people behind?
For decades, we've been telling people, get a college degree and you'll be able to compete for the growth jobs with higher incomes. Today, it's not necessary that that be the singular path that people take.
Skills aren't always measured by a diploma. They're measured by the experience that you gain and the type of training that you receive.
What I'm seeing and hearing is that there's a fear that jobs are going away and there's not enough opportunities out there, but we see that in the trade sector. There's been a huge increase in openings for employment, but there's not enough skilled labor to fill those roles.
In healthcare, people always assume there's only 2 people that work in the hospitals, and that's doctors and nurses, but you have a gamut of different occupations: cardiovascular technician, surge tech, IT, health information.
The real opportunity is to look to the middle of the graph, to the so-called middle skilled jobs, and to equip more people to hold those kinds of middle skilled jobs, and then to create more of those jobs.
So a skills-based labor market makes it possible for people to see career paths that they didn't realize were open to them before. We found people like a FedEx truck driver in her early 40s, and she doesn't know what the digital economy holds for her. And through online tools, she can see that she has a lot of the skills for a higher tech, higher paying job with very few additional hours of training.
We need to change hiring practices, which is part of what Skillful's doing. Working on the ground, meeting with businesses, showing them how to do more of a skills-focused hiring.
87% of Americans believe that skills training throughout one's lifetime is necessary in order to succeed.
We have a role. It's not just to sit back and hire people coming out of our college system or even our high schools. We need to do more training and apprenticeships.
People say, well, what if you train these people and they leave? We say, well, what if you don't train them and they stay?
Employers have to do more. Those of us in the tech sector need to create tools that will help people do more. Educational institutions, governments, and frankly, most importantly, all of us have an individual responsibility to do more in terms of learning more.
So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview. And Governor Hickenlooper, I hope you see a lot of your friends from Colorado there. We believe that this notion, which we've taken up in Skillful, enables employers to go after the workforce they need, enables job seekers to see where the jobs are, and educators to know what to train to. And so we've worked, as I said, we now have almost 300 employers signed up in Colorado. We've worked deeply with about 20 of them to develop the position descriptions on a skills basis. In Colorado, and I'm sure this is true in your own states too, for an entry-level computer systems administration job, which has an annual income nationally of about $62,000 a year, in Colorado, 75% of those job postings require a bachelor's degree and are a barrier for anyone else to apply for those jobs, but only 45% of the incumbents have a bachelor's degree. So if we can make it easy, and particularly for small and mid-sized employers, to break down the barrier and to have the tools, which we do on skillful.com, and we're bringing in tools like the curricula that Siemens is creating. There's enormous value out there to bring to employers to see who they might go after in the market that has the skills. But we also need to, and this is a place where you can have a big impact, we need to have the trainers, the community colleges, the boot camps, the four-year colleges as well, make transparent what skills people have developed when they go to those schools, so people get something of value along the way to the diploma, and so that they can go out into the labor market at different points and really think about learning as lifelong. You can help drive your community colleges and four-year colleges to think about their business model as a lifelong business model. That's a revenue generator for state systems. So we need to change those business models to match with the market. We need to work on workforce centers because I bet you anything, if you look at your unemployment offices and workforce centers, you're going to find that they get no training on what the jobs look like and what employers are looking for. Or if that training exists, it's segmented into the economic development part, the business-facing part of these operations rather than the job seeker facing part of the operation. We also need to create a lot more transparency for job seekers about the fact that these opportunities are there, and governors can be great leaders on this whole issue we've talked about of people seeing themselves in these jobs. Most people do what their neighbor does or their parents have done in the past, and they don't even realize that they could be in these jobs. The female FedEx truck driver in our video is a real person in Colorado. She was worried she couldn't lift the boxes anymore. She didn't appreciate that to be a FedEx truck driver, she gets trained in a lot of digital economy skills, and those skills are transferable to an IT track career. So we would really encourage you, we would be very happy to work with you to think about how in your state do you create a new labor market ecosystem. Microsoft has just joined with us. They've invested $25 million in Skillful, in expanding in Colorado, going to other states, and also developing policy work at both the state and federal level. We need to make financial aid resources open and available. I could go through the, back through the things you could do on the points that I covered, but if you focus in your own state on creating a new skills-based labor market that works for the people in your state, you'll bring together your employers, your educators, your workforce centers, and job seekers will benefit. They will be the ultimate people who will benefit from this, but will grow our economies at the same time. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was terrific. I know we have a number of governors here who are engaged in some of this similar work, so I'd like to begin by asking Kentucky's Governor Bevin, to share with us some of your experiences.
Sure, I'll try to keep this brief and touch on a few things that we've implemented just recently. I've only been governor for a year and a half, and so I'll mention a few things that others can feel free. There's nothing really proprietary about any of these things. So much of what we learned, I was one of the governors, as others that you'll hear from in a moment, who had a chance to go and see Siemens, among others, in Germany. And it's impressive. The young man that we saw in this video, we met dozens of them in Germany. And their English was just impeccable, frankly, interestingly. But these were impressive young people who were on a track to a career that they felt good about. I think the real key is for us, as was noted by both of you, is to destigmatize this idea of not going immediately to a four-year degree. And to realize that, in fact, simply getting a four-year degree is not in and of itself necessarily the best track to having a fulfilled career. There's a man in Kentucky where all of the titanium ribs that are used in the Boeing Dreamliners are made in this little plant in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and there's a man who oversees that entire high-tech, very specialized fabrication process, who had, for 10 years after high school, didn't even go to college, and he's the head of that entire program for Boeing. He now has advanced degrees, but it was years later when he needed them that he decided to go back. In the interim, he had just learned skills in the very same types of programs that you all have described. So it was encouraging. I just want to touch on a couple things that we've done. First of all, we're funding now in Kentucky dual credit at the high school level, where we're funding it in our budget, so that high school seniors and juniors and moving on down as the years go on will be able to take college, post-secondary level certification training and or academic training while still getting credit in high school. That's one thing that's going to have a profound impact. We're putting seeds in the ground now. In just even last year, we saw a 72% increase in the number of young people taking part. So I'm confident that that will produce results. We put a $100 million workforce development initiative in place over 2 years, $100 million. To receive it, one of the things, and I would encourage all you governors, if you do something like this, don't allow it to get hijacked politically by your legislators, because what some of them wanted to do is make sure that some of the money went to this district and some went to this part of the state and some went to this, and don't allow it to just be the best ideas. We said we want to see 3 applicants work together to apply for this money: the business community, the local high school, and the local post-secondary institution have got to meet together, work together, and come up with a joint application. When that type of dialogue starts, good things are going to happen in your communities. And so we had $540 million worth of application for the $100 million. Obviously, we could only choose 20%. And so we chose the best of those. But some of those who came up with ideas and received nothing from the state decided to pursue their ideas anyway, because they were so enthused by the dialogue that they'd had. And we, in result of this, have gotten hundreds of millions of dollars worth of workforce development as a result of our willingness to put $100 million worth of taxpayer money up. We focused not on simply providing, in some states, and I applaud you who've done it and have been able to afford to do it, who provide free post-secondary education for 2 years, say, for anybody to study anything. We focused on 5 key areas, the 5 areas where, frankly, we have the greatest number of needs, the most unfilled jobs. And there are things like logistics and construction and IT and healthcare, et cetera. And these are areas where there's open jobs right now, thousands. And so we, the state, said we'll come alongside, and for anyone, regardless of age, if they've never attained at least an associate's level degree in their life, they can come along into this program, and we, the state, will make them whole on any cost associated with attaining 2 years' worth of certification and or degree in those areas where there is a job waiting for someone with at least 2 years' worth of work at the other end. Not complicated, but this will change the dynamic as well for people. You talked about journeymen. We have a program, apprenticeships, I won't go into because a lot of us are starting apprenticeship programs and we're focusing on it like we never have before, but we're looking for new ways to do it. We have a program called Justice to Journeymen. Every single one of our states has a literally captive audience of people capable of being trained. And we have in Kentucky any number of folks, 25,000 folks that are incarcerated. 95% of all the people in all of our jails are going to get out. 95% of them are getting out. What are they going to do when they get out? What skills will they have? And to become a journeyman, you need 540 hours worth of classroom time. Well, you know where everyone's going to be when they're in jail. You know where they're going to be at 7:30 in the morning. And so they're starting their training now in 7 of our institutions, 3 of our juvenile detention centers, and 4 of our regular prisons. We're starting this Justice to Journeyman program where they can start getting training now while they're in prison on the educational side. We're moving in Kentucky to 100% outcomes-based funding. This is something I pushed for when I ran. I got a lot of resistance, as you would imagine, from universities. But our post-secondary education system with taxpayer money is going to be 100% outcomes-based funding. And it's going to be driven by outcomes that, frankly, generate the very things that our marketplace wants. Those are just a few of the things. And the last thing I'll comment on, and this is a question I would say to those in our Congress, we've got to rethink, I believe, the types of ideas we have about what young people can or cannot do. Some of the age restrictions we have on kids in high school being able to go into businesses and to learn, I think have got to be rethought. And I think if we do some of these things, these are just a handful of the things that we're doing. I mean, there's nothing proprietary about them or even that particularly brilliant. Some of them are ideas we've taken from others. There are other states that are doing good things. But I mention these only to say that we all have got to do this. And I'm grateful for the fact that companies like Siemens are leading on this front. I mean, you truly are, and it is inspiring to states like us that are looking for models that we can replicate. So thank you both for being here. Thanks for your passion for this. And the same issue we have in Kentucky is that it's shared by every governor that I know of. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you, Governor. And I think what's key is none of this is proprietary. And even in industry, we feel the same way. We will all benefit by there being more available skills. And so what we've done with working with Alcoa, Dow, and the National Association of Manufacturers and the Department of Labor is we've created a playbook that any company, small or large, can use. It's available online at the Department of Labor as well as the National Association of Manufacturers if you want to start an apprentice program. It's about 130-some pages of how to. And people can tailor it, and it can be used anywhere. We all, I think, want this to succeed. We all need it to succeed for our economy, and because of that, we're happy to share that, lessons learned, and anything we can with any state.
I appreciate you offering that. You know, you mentioned earlier the stigma, and I agree with that, and I think governors have a particular role to help reduce the stigma, but it has to be done on the corporate side as well, which is to say, it's one thing to say you believe in competency-based hiring, and then you go back and you just do the resume tracking and look for the 4-year degree. You need a real commitment to that sort of hiring, and that's why your leadership is so extraordinary. I need to keep us moving because we're a little bit behind. So, Governor Hickenlooper, could you share with us what's going on in Colorado?
Sure. I want to thank both these women for not just coming here today, but all the work you've done, and certainly the two sides you're presenting, apprenticeships and the skills-based technology platform fit together so beautifully and allow us to imagine a, cradle to grave arc by which people, kids, but ultimately all age people take responsibility for their own careers. One of the things that we found is, as we've gone into this over the last several years, we can, on a state basis, choose to go through all of our job openings and eliminate the BA requirement where we can. And it's amazing, if you go through, it's so easy, and we've all done it, just to say, all right, these jobs all require a BA, when in essence, many of them don't. And I think once we do that, it makes it a lot easier to reach out to our business community. The second point is, as both of these women are describing, you can't do either of these programs without organizing the business community. And that in itself is a muscle that we don't often use enough. And certainly with the apprenticeships, the business community, each industry comes together and helps design the curriculum. So these kids go work for a couple days a week, but then they also go to a community college or a workforce training center, and what they're learning is really designed to make them successful at the place where they're working. Think about how many 17 and 18-year-old kids normally are bored silly, right? 1/3 of our kids go to college, the other 2/3 aren't going to college. They spend their junior and senior years kind of twiddling their thumbs. Most, shouldn't say I'm making gross generalizations, but many of them are bored silly. This allows them to be engaged. The third thing, when you organize the business community, you begin to get to the point, and we're just really embracing this, how are we going to make the assessments, if we're talking about a skills-based approach to an arc, a lifetime of learning, how do we measure and know that kids have taken a training program, they have a certificate of some sort, that they really are competent, they have a competency in these various skills that allows businesses to look at a website like skillful.com and really have a good sense of what they can do. And I think everybody should go out and look at not just the governors, but as many people as possible. Microsoft has a great program out there that is pretty amazing and gives you a picture of what's possible in the future. So anyway, I could go on and on, but I know we're out of time. But I do, again, want to thank both of these women for being here, but also what you guys are bringing to this. It's going to transform this country in real time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Governor Fallin.
Well, I think this is one of the most transformational things we can do for our nation, is to fill the middle skills gap, to prepare our young folks, our adults, for careers and skills that are relevant to today's society and looking out towards the future. One of the things I think all of us governors hear is that employers have jobs that they can't fill, and then we all have friends that have someone that has a child that graduated from high school or maybe graduated from college, and they can't find a job. Or there may be an adult our age that says, hey, something's changed in my life and I can't find a job, but yet we know there are tens of thousands of jobs that are open out there. And so I am so excited about the apprenticeship programs that we saw in Germany and Switzerland, and I think it is critical for our competitiveness as a nation that we really rethink how we do education and training to match the skills that are needed for today's workforce. One of the favorite things I like to say when I talk to businesses is it's not your grandfather's manufacturing facility anymore. Everything's high tech. You need to know something about applications and coding and programming, and I can't think of hardly any businesses that don't have something to do with a computer of some sort or some type of software. And if we don't transform our learning systems in our nation to be relevant to the skills we're going to need, we're going to fall behind as a nation. But the thing I found very intriguing about going and seeing the workforce programs at Siemens and the other companies that we went to see in Germany and Switzerland is, as we talk to these students who are going to class 2 days a week, going to work 3 days a week, they all were excited. And I asked these students, would you rather go to school 5 days a week taking classes, or would you rather do this 3-day work program in 2 days in classes? All of them that we talked to, Lieutenant Governor, or Governor, sorry, we were Lieutenant Governors together a long time ago, thinking about our past. We elevated ourselves, didn't we? The theory. We may wish to go back. But he's your job, right? Yeah. But all the students told us that they love going to work because they saw the relevancy of making money they make money, they learn soft skills, they learn to show up, go to work, they can see why they're learning something, how it could pay off in the future, they can actually get a job and make some money. But I agree with what you guys said a few moments ago about the stigma of talking to parents and talking to students, that there is a great job to be had with a good salary and a good career path, and looking at our middle skills gap and transforming more of our students over to what I call dual education, earn and learn, I think is what we called it, and type of system that we've seen throughout Europe. The other thing I found was very intriguing is I talked to the adults around the apprenticeship programs and just citizens within those communities. I would say, tell me about your drug problems, because we've had a lot of discussion about opioid abuse and prescription drug abuse, and I would say, tell me about your teen pregnancy problems, which are big issues in America. And they said, well, I don't really have problems with that, which I found intriguing, because I think the reason why they don't have big problems with those things is because these young students at 15, 16 are seeing why it's relevant to get a skill, get a job, make money, there's a career path ahead, and they're staying out of trouble and not having some of the societal issues that we have in America, where with our high school students, we give them a diploma and we say, best of luck, hope it works out. Maybe you can find something, maybe not. But in the apprenticeship programs, they actually get a certificate and some type of work skill says you're qualified. Employers know that if they've been certified, that they're qualified if they hire one of those types of students. And the other thing we heard, governors, is that the students would typically stay on with whatever company they were getting the apprenticeship with, and the employers found a ready-made workforce with those employees because they had a chance to try them out to see if they were going to make it. The other thing I found was intriguing, and one of the students I talked to in our state, in Oklahoma, that was going through an apprenticeship, he was going through a dentistry apprenticeship, and I asked him how he liked it, and he said, I don't. I said, that's fine, because if you don't like it, you need to find that out now before you waste your time going through a program, spending a lot of money in something that you don't like to do, and that way you can learn something else and move on. So I think it's very exciting that we have a movement in our nation, a discussion in our nation about apprenticeships, about education, relevancy, bringing together our employers and our education institutions to actually have a conversation about what type of skills do you need. And to get on to what Governor Bevin said, I think there's great room for single moms, for people coming to our corrections facilities, for those that are disabled, for veterans coming out of our military service to go through these apprenticeship programs too, even as adults, and learn skill sets that will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move on to Governor Daugaard and then Governor Bullock.
Thank you. Well, first let me add my thanks to Judy Marks and Siemens and the Markle Foundation, Judy especially for helping the governors get a chance to see things in Europe and Germany and Switzerland. It was really an eye-opener for me. If you look at the Center for Education and the Workforce data at Georgetown University, I recommend the governors take a look at that website. They really have some eye-opening data, eye-opening for me. I went back to our states, and after visiting Colorado and seeing some of the data that Governor Hickenlooper and his team put together on Colorado young people, I looked at that same data with respect to South Dakota young people. And let me tell you what I found. Number one, if you go back 10 years ago, looking at the class that graduated in 2016 for data we had, if you picked 100 ninth graders who entered high school at that time, 4 years later, about 77% had graduated. Now today we're doing a little better, about 80%, but I'll venture to say that's true in most of our states, that about 20% of your high schoolers are dropping out before they reach graduation. So that's a group that we're losing. Then let's assume those remaining 80 do go on to some post-secondary education. How important is that? Well, I'll tell you how important it is. This Center for Education and Workforce identified when the recession came along, of course, we knew jobs were lost in all of our states. South Dakota lost jobs. Most of us, the nation as a whole, has regained all those jobs and then some. And most states, at the state level, that's true. It's true in South Dakota. We've regained those jobs and then some. But if you look at the nature of the person who has regained a job, when the recession began, and then at the bottom of the trough, at the end of the recession, those with a high school diploma or less lost 6.2 million jobs. And then now the nation has regained 11 million some jobs since then. How many of those jobs went to high school diploma holders or high school dropouts? 80,000. So if you were a high school diploma holder or a high school dropout and you lost your job during the recession, what's happening is those people with bachelor's degree, they're taking them because employers are using the bachelor's degree as a way to screen. So that's one problem that we've seen. But it encourages us to recognize and urge to our young people how important it is to complete high school and get some post-secondary training of some kind. So that kind of data can really bring people up and get their attention because it makes people realize, I've got to do this. So in South Dakota, what we've done is we've done dual credit, much like Governor Bevin talked about. That's been a tremendous success. If you're not using some of your state dollars to encourage high school students to take post-secondary credit while they're still in their high school years and get credit at both levels, you should be doing that. That's been a tremendous success. We also offered full ride scholarships to technical schools. You know, a lot of our states have merit-based scholarships. Those are great. We also have need-based scholarship, but many of the needs-based scholarships don't encourage any particular pathway. And so imagine a needs-based scholar who enters a 4-year degree, decides on an academic path which has no demand in the marketplace. We're like the alcoholic enabler. We get them all this debt that they need to incur on top of their scholarship, and they get a degree for which there is no job. And so I contend that our needs-based scholarships in particular, maybe our merit-based scholarships, should be offered contingent upon the student choosing a career path for which there is demand in the marketplace. Now, we want our students to chase their dreams, but maybe we need to open their eyes a little bit more urgently about what paths they're choosing and where they may end up with. I have also just recently, as a result of going to Europe and learning about all this apprenticeship, learning a little bit from Colorado, South Dakota, we gathered together a large group of our school superintendents and encouraged them to start integrating work-based learning opportunities, including formal apprenticeships at the high school level. And of course, we want to do that in our tech school level as well, but at the high school level too. And we're looking at waiving other curriculum that's driven toward a 4-year college degree for all mentality and saying we're going to waive some of that for your students who want to pursue this apprenticeship training, and happily our statute gives our Secretary of Education the power to do that. And so we don't have to go through all the fear that, oh, there's less rigor or somehow you're going to destroy our education system. And those are some strides we're taking in South Dakota. And I want to thank NGA and thank the Markle Foundation and Siemens and G. Morgan Chase for their support to this eye-opening experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. That was great. I'm going to give the last word to Governor Bullock.
Very much appreciate your all's commitment, because I think from my perspective as governors, that's how we're going to meet workforce shortage needs. We've raised the number of registered apprentices in our program by 30% in the last 4 years. I've followed from 2000 to today. 90% of those are still working in our state, which is so important for every parent. Average salary of an apprenticeship graduate is about $60,000 in Montana, which is significant. And I think we need to educate both the employers, government institutions, and the students. At the end of the day, so many people think of apprentices as just the trades, or there's 1,000 different apprenticeable fields. We have apprentices in phlebotomy now, to IT. When it comes to employers, this past legislative session passed a bill that if an employer hires an apprentice, we'll pay a $750 tax credit. If that's a veteran, we'll pay you $1,500. So we're getting the employers on board, but I think that we all have to I had to work a lot with my two-year colleges to say, rethink their role. It isn't always about a two-year degree. It's about a professionally recognized credential. So I actually hired someone that works part at Department of Labor and the other at higher education to bridge that gap, and then also to say, let's give you credits for prior learning assessments to get you further along that path. But your continuing efforts also, just as Governor Daugaard is now getting into the schools, I think that you as industry leaders, your voice, both to the manufacturing side or the business side, but also to the student side, to say, this is what, as a major employer, I need, and these are the skills that I need, can fundamentally help us shift this so that folks are thinking about, boy, I can make $60,000, and I can be earning money while I'm learning a skill that the employer is going to appreciate. So I think that this mind shift is happening all across the country, but your continuing leadership efforts can really help us as governors make that happen.
Thank you, Steve. We are out of time. I could give each of you 30 seconds to wrap up if you'd like to respond to what you've heard.
This is a great opportunity for all of us. We all have to come together. This is absolutely a state-led issue. We believe that this growth is grown locally, and all of you, we look forward, not just as Siemens, but I think I speak for a lot of industrial leaders. This is all about our future, and it's a mandate and a call to action, and we look forward to working with you.
I would conclude by saying that I really encourage you as governors to create that labor market in your state that brings together all the good one-off efforts, the apprenticeships or your efforts with community colleges, all the good one-off efforts, because without this system, without a labor market ecosystem, which we're happy to help you define, we have a playbook for it, everybody's got a playbook, but without that system, you won't be able to make this happen at scale. It won't work for people of all ages, and it won't continue. So I really encourage you to take all the fabulous work you're doing and think about what's the ecosystem of my state, what's the labor market that I want everyone to participate in. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, guys. Fantastic discussion. Now we are going to I have a video that we'd like to show you. Related to all of this is making sure that people have skills that are relevant from the very earliest ages. And I'd like to introduce Reshma Sujani, the founder and CEO of Girls Who Code. I hope all of you have had a few minutes to see the girls who are out here. I know Prime Minister Trudeau spent about a half an hour yesterday with the girls. He was really into it. These are young women who are learning how to do computer coding to solve real-world problems. Here in Rhode Island, we are long on this. We're partnering with Microsoft and Girls Who Code to teach computer science in every public school, in every grade, starting in kindergarten. And it is a great thing. And I have to say, especially with three of us women here on stage, it is great to go down and see these girls. They are the face of the future. They are passionate, and they are solving these problems. So we're going to cue up the video, and then Reshma is going to join us on stage.
Wake up, work, and it's got me pretty stressed out to the point where I don't really eat like I should. I'm a fueler for a rental company.
In the wintertime, it's a lot more strenuous. He works, anywhere from 7 in the morning till 4 in the morning the next day, 7 days a week straight.
My work is dangerous. I'm basically driving a bomb around, a truck full of fuel.
My dad works a lot. He wakes up early and comes home late at night.
I wouldn't want Courtney to do what I do. I want her to go to college. I want her to have more opportunities in life. That's why I put Courtney in coding.
Okay, girls. The goal was really just trying to get them comfortable and not being afraid to make mistakes. Everybody listen to Courtney, please.
So to get the cat to pop out, I had to get it out. I had to just leave that there. It's difficult because you have to do this math with it.
And what's that math for?
To when you click to show where it will go.
Okay, so
Coding has taught me that nothing comes easy.
Girls Who Code is a lot more than just coding. We cover a lot of life skills, asking questions, working together, and teamwork.
Coding makes you be able to create stuff. I get to see what I create come to life.
I put her in these extracurricular activities so she can advance and have a career that's less labor intensive.
I think coding will give them, more opportunity for not only employment, but it's also sort of the next craft.
Courtney is the center of my world. I've had full custody of her since I was in the military. She's kept me strong and focused. My goal before I die is to just make sure that her life's as comfortable as can be, and I'm here as much as I can be for her.
I like to make stories, which means I would like to make them come to life. My dream is to probably work at Cartoon Network.
Which she always, when she puts her mind to it, she can do anything she wants.
Courtney's smart, she's kind, and she's a coder.
Thank you so much, Governor Raimondo, for inviting us to be here today. You're such a role model for so many girls in our country, so thank you. So, Carrollton, Ohio could be any town in America. In Carrollton, there's no Wi-Fi in the homes, little to no Wi-Fi in the schools. The county has been decimated by the heroin epidemic. But 40 girls, twice a week, meet in the local library to learn how to code, to get their shot at the middle class. Automation has transformed everything about the way we live and work. Jobs are not going to be done by machines and humans. They're going to be done by robots and computers. And if we were honest, this has created a lot of pain for Americans. But it's also created a tremendous opportunity. There are 500,000 jobs that are open in computing and technology. And these are jobs that are great. They pay a good wage, a great wage, $120,000 if you're a software programmer. The problem is that too many Americans don't have the skills to fill these jobs. Only 40,000 Americans graduated in computer science to fill those 500,000 jobs. This is an opportunity for many of you in your states and your constituents. I believe that the solution is girl power. Women, over the past 2 decades, we've been climbing. We're the majority in college, the majority in the labor force, 45% of all of America's breadwinners. You walk into any town, county, and parish, and you'll see women who are putting food on the table, who are paying the mortgage. The problem is that the number of women in computing has been declining. In the 1980s, if you walked into any computer science classroom in the country, it would pretty much have been half boys and half girls. If we were to Google a picture of Steve Jobs' original Macintosh team, there were more women on that team than any technology team today. It's a huge, huge loss for our country and for our families. So people often ask me, why? Why are women disappearing? And the first thing is culture. I know a lot of you sitting around the table have daughters. I actually met some of them last night. And you know what happens around 8th grade when all of a sudden, when they loved math and science, they now hate it. And it's because of the Barbie doll that says, I hate math, let's go shopping instead. It's because we can walk into a store and buy a t-shirt that says, I'm allergic to algebra. is because when I turn on the television or we open up a magazine, the image that we see of a computer programmer is a dude in a hoodie sitting in a basement somewhere, drinking a Red Bull and staring at a screen, right? And little girls look at him and they say, I don't just want to be him. I don't even want to be friends with him. Culture is having a huge effect on who our girls think that they can be when they grow up. The second thing, and I did a whole TED Talk on this. I spend a lot of time in the company of teenage girls, so I dissect them like they're a science experiment. And one of the things that I realize is, we're raising our girls to be perfect, and we're raising our boys to be brave. From a very young age, we teach our girls to smile pretty, play it safe, get all A's. We teach our boys to crawl to the top of the monkey bars and just jump off head first. And so by the time they're adults, they're risk takers. They say in Silicon Valley, you can't even get funding unless you've had 2 startups. My 2.5-year-old son is here, and I'm sure some of you have seen him. He was crying for his selfie with Justin Trudeau yesterday. And I often look at his swim class, and it's half boys and half girls. And when the girls are learning how to swim, all the parents are like, it's okay, honey. You don't have to get your feet wet. Don't be scared. And with the boys, they're like pushing them in the deep end, the moms and the dads at 6 months, because they're teaching them how to be men, how to be fearless, how to be risk takers. And we are protecting our girls. We're coddling them. We're making them afraid of critical feedback. And coding is a huge part in teaching them how to be imperfect. So in 2012, the non-coder decided to do something about it. And I started an organization called Girls Who Code, and we started with 20 girls in New York City, and I've taught 40,000 girls how to code in all of our 50 states through free summer immersion programs and clubs. And I do this work I'll admit, I'm a feminist with a capital F, but I do this work because I believe in the economic opportunity of women, and I believe that when you teach girls to code, they will change the world. And I see this every day. I see it in Korea, who was 5 years old when her daddy got diagnosed with cancer. So she built an algorithm to help detect whether a cancer is benign or malignant, so she could save her father's life. I see it in Lucy and Maya, 2 11-year-olds in New Jersey, who were watching CNN one day and saw that kids were dying because of lead poisoning, and so decided to build an app to help do something about it. I see it in Jasmine, whose mother works at Burger King, single mom, 4 brothers and sisters. She built an app called Wacky Words to make sure that every child has a chance to go to college and learn SAT words. I hope all of you had a chance to go downstairs yesterday and see these 30 girls from Rhode Island and Massachusetts and New York and New Jersey start solving the problems of today and tomorrow. We had a group of girls who built an app on cybersecurity for senior citizens because far too many of their aunts and uncles had been hacked. We had a group of girls come all the way from a homeless shelter in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and they built a website to make sure that underemployed women have the opportunity to get jobs. We had a team from the Northeast come here to do something about infrastructure, and they built an application to negotiate traffic because far too many of them were late for school. These girls are our future. And when I look in your eyes, I see that same look that I saw in Courtney's father's eyes. You'd do anything for your girls, and you'd probably do anything for your constituents who are girls. And when it comes to computer science education, we've made progress. Governor Hutchinson, you've done tremendous work. Governor Raimondo's done amazing work. Governor Reynolds, we're so proud of what we're doing with you. And today, 1 out of 4 schools offers computer science. But I'm on the stage today to talk truth to power. And the reality is we are failing our girls. Your schools are failing our girls. And you don't have to trust me. Go get the data. Fewer than 1 out of 5 girls of students in your computer science classes are girls. And that's not good enough for me, and it shouldn't be good enough for you. As you continue to lead on this issue and bring computer science to every classroom, please track the data. Don't ever take your eyes off gender. We also have an opportunity together to make sure that we get every single school a Girls Who Code club. We know that after-school programs for girls will increase the likelihood that they will sign up for one of your computer science classes. 75% of our girls, because they did a Girls Who Code club, are now learning computer science in the daytime. We can do this. Look, I'm not a coder. I know most of you aren't, besides I know you, the governor of Puerto Rico, has had some experience in computer science, but you don't need to be technical to be a leader on this issue, and I'm living proof of that. This is a problem that we can solve, and it's up to you. The future of our girls is in each and every one of your hands, and I want to create the next generation of powerful female leaders, and I know you do too. So I hope you'll join me in this movement. Thank you so much.